TV7 Israel News is made possible thanks to your generous donations. Shalom, Erev Tov, good evening. This is TV7 Israel News, broadcast to you from Jerusalem. The IDF launches Operation Gideon's Chariots 2 against Islamist Hamas in the Gaza Strip. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu asserts Israel's resolve to defeat Hamas at all costs. Qatar fails to secure concrete support for joint Islamic action against Israel, despite broadly voiced rhetoric in support of Doha. IDF forces have begun expanded ground operations in Gaza City as part of Operation Gideon's Chariots 2, with divisions 98, 162, and 36 entering deep into Gaza City, while the Gaza Division and the 99th Division operating in other areas of the Gaza Strip. Speaking to commanders of Division 162, Defense Minister Israel stressed the importance of employing decisive force against Islamist Hamas and underscored the importance of force protection during the maneuver. IDF Chief of General Staff Lieutenant General Eyal Zamir, for his part, met with commanders of the 98th Division, during the course of which he stated, quote, "Yesterday, we expanded the ground operation into the center of Gaza City, which constitutes a vital area for Hamas. The mission rests on your shoulders to decisively defeat Hamas's Gaza City brigade." General Zamir further stressed that the maneuver in Gaza City is a significant step to carry out the IDF's highest moral and important duty to return all the hostages home and to dismantle the military and governing capabilities of the Hamas terrorist organization. Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio concluded a two-day visit to Israel, during the course of which Washington's top diplomat and national security advisor emphasized the Trump administration's unequivocal position that Hamas can no longer continue to exist as an armed element that threatens the peace and security not just of Israel, but of the world.
The President's been clear on the ongoing issues in Gaza, and that is that every single hostage, both living and deceased, needs to be home immediately. Hamas can no longer continue to exist as an armed element that threatens the peace and security, not just of Israel, but of the world, and that the people of Gaza deserve a better future, one that cannot begin until Hamas is eliminated and until all of the hostages, both living and deceased, are home. And he remains committed firmly to that objective. And that's what we seek to talk about today, have talked about today, and will continue to talk about, and that is the road forward on how to achieve those things. Those objectives remain. Those objectives remain in place.
Speaking in a joint press conference with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Secretary Rubio also seized the opportunity to warn Europe that the Islamic Republic of Iran is working to manufacture ballistic missiles that could pose a direct threat to continental Europe.
Obviously, we cooperated and were involved together just a few weeks ago on the issue of Iran and Iran's desire to possess not just nuclear weapons, but short and mid-range missiles with the capability of threatening our presence here in this hemisphere, in this region, and of course the safety and security of the Jewish state. But I would venture to say a threat that actually extends well beyond that, to the kingdoms of the Gulf, and eventually even into Europe. In fact, some of the missiles they're trying to develop now can already range countries in Europe. And so a nuclear Iran, governed by a radical Shia cleric, that possesses not just nuclear weapons potentially, but the missiles that could deliver those weapons far away, is an unacceptable risk, not just for Israel, not just for the United States, but for the world. And that's why the President continues with our campaign of maximum pressure. There will continue to be maximum economic pressure on Iran until they change course. That's why we are encouraged to see our partners in Europe begin the process of snapping back sanctions on Iran. They are clearly out of compliance with what was already a flawed deal to begin with, and we encourage them to continue down that road. We 100% support that. That is exactly what needs to happen, and we remain firmly committed.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, for his part, stressed the importance of the U.S.-Israeli alliance, which jointly faces immense challenges in the face of malign actors. Netanyahu continued by highlighting a remark that President Trump had told him in recent days.
He said to me the other day, he said, remember October 7th. That's what he said. It's like, remember the Alamo, remember October 7th. And we remember. We remember the savagery, we remember the incredible massacre of the innocent. We remember our hostages, and we're committed to bringing all of them home, the living and the dead. And we appreciate all the help that President Trump and you have given us in this sacred task. We remember Hamas, and we know that we must defeat them and ensure that they no longer are enabled to turn Gaza into a threat to Israel. They no longer should be there. Your presence here in Israel today is a clear message that America stands with Israel. You stand with us in the face of terror, in the face of the incredible, I would almost say, Middle Ages lies that are directed against us, the rising anti-Semitism in the world, and the really the weak governments that are putting pressures on us because they collapse under the pressure of Islamist minorities and incredible vilification.
Both the Israeli Prime Minister and American Secretary of State were further asked to expand on Israel's decision to strike at a gathering of arch-terrorists of Hamas in the Qatari capital of Doha, whether Israel had really acted alone, and whether the Trump administration is concerned of expected ramifications from the strike.
Well, I've said repeatedly that Israel's decision to act against the Hamas terrorist leadership in Qatar was a wholly independent decision by Israel. It was a decision taken by me and our top security force chiefs. It was conducted by us, and we assume full responsibility for it because we believe that terrorists should not be given a haven, and the people who planned the worst massacre of the Jewish people since the Holocaust cannot have immunity. So we did it on our own, period.
All I would add is that we are focused on what happens now. What happens next? What role can Qatar play possibly in reaching an outcome here that leads not just to the end of this hostilities, not just to the release of all of the hostages, both living and deceased, not just the disarmament and elimination of Hamas, but also a better future for the people of Gaza, which isn't possible as long as Hamas exists, which isn't possible as long as 48 hostages are being held. And so we're going to continue to encourage Qatar to play a constructive role in that regard. We're focused because at the end of the day, no matter what has happened, these fundamentals still remain. There is still a Hamas, there is still 48 hostages, and there is still a war going on. And all of these things standing in the way of a better future for the people of Gaza and a peaceful end to what's happening now. So we're going to remain focused on what we can do next.
Following his visit to Israel, Secretary Rubio traveled directly to Qatar, where he met with Doha's Emir Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani and Foreign Minister and Premier Mohammed bin Jassim Al Thani. It is important to note that prior to Secretary Rubio's arrival, while Washington's top diplomat was on his visit here in Israel, the Qataris held a leadership's emergency session of the Organization for Islamic Cooperation, during the course of which Qatar's Emir urged the Muslim world to unite against Israel, promoting libels and deceitful claims, which gained widespread support, to include from both Israel's Arab partners and enemies alike.
Israel claims to be a democracy surrounded by enemies, while in reality it is building an occupation and apartheid system hostile to its surroundings and waging a war of extermination during which it has committed crimes that know no red lines. Its prime minister announced days ago that he has prevented the establishment of a Palestinian state and that such a state will never exist in the future. He is hostile to the Palestinian Authority and opposes the agreements under which this authority was established. We stand with you with all of our capabilities and support any step to face this aggression and to protect your security and stability and the safety of your people. Qatar's security is our security, and its stability is our stability, and our support to you is absolute.
Ironically, Iran's President Masoud Pezeshkian, whose own country bombed Qatar merely 2 months ago, referred to Israel's strike on Hamas in Qatar as a blatant and shameless declaration that military force, not law, now determines the rules.
تجاوز گستاخانه 9 سپتامبر 2025 به قطر
The September 9th, 2025 aggression on Qatar was a premeditated assault by the Zionist regime aimed at sabotaging diplomatic efforts to end the genocide in Gaza. This act of aggression is more than just a crime. It is a blatant and shameless declaration that military force, not law, now determines the rules.
قدرت نظامی و نه قانون تعیین کننده است.
It is important to explain that while the Israeli strike did rattle the Arab and Muslim world, since many of those countries harbor designated terrorists under international law, the support for Qatar, which rivals many of the Muslim countries in the region, was merely rhetorical, failing to secure support for any joint action against Israel. Thank you for watching TV7 Israel News. Please continue to pray for the hostages, for the troops now operating in the Gaza Strip, and for the peace of Jerusalem and redemption of Israel. I'm Jonathan Hassan. God willing, until our next update, Shalom from Jerusalem.